Hey guys, David back again with my brother Edwin from Texas Defense Academy here in Fort Worth, Texas. If you watch a couple of our videos that we've shot together, I'm going to say the same thing. If you're in Texas, if you're in Fort Worth, you need to make it down to see this guy. He's very proficient, he's very knowledgeable, and he is really good at transferring those skills onto whoever he's teaching. So if you get the chance, make it happen. So today, I want to talk a little bit about old school KFM, and the system was not called old school KFM. The system was called Keysi Fighting Method. It was really big back in the early 2000s, primarily around the time that the Batman Begins movie came out, because it was used as for the fight system of Batman, and all the Batman enthusiasts like myself and like Edwin all wanted to fight like Batman. Not to mention, it was something that you hadn't really seen before. Right?
No, it was something different.
Yeah, it was definitely different. So the hands were up, and there was a lot of hammer fists. There was a lot of weird elbows from weird directions, and through like traditional martial arts, and even stuff like JKD and Filipino martial arts. It was like, that's different. What is that? So it gained a lot of interest, and then later on, the founders, because there were two founders, right? There was Justo and there was Andy.
Justo Dieguez and Andy Norman.
Justo Dieguez and Andy Norman. These guys ended up having a little disagreement, right?
They had a fallout somewhere 2011, 2012, and 2012 was kind of like the end of it, where they all parted ways and things went in different directions for the organization.
Yeah, I remember that because well, you had started KFM.
I started KFM right when as soon as the Batman Begin movie came out,
and that was July 2005. I remember it.
Was it somewhere around there?
Yeah, I remember it very well because it was
I thought it was 2008 when it came out.
No, it was 2008. I'm pretty sure it was Dark Knight.
All right, it was a good movie. That's all I know.
But yeah, no, it was right around 2005 because of shortly around the time that I graduated high school.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you had been in KFM for what, 5 years up until that point?
5 years up to the end of the organization. So I started back in late 2008, early 2009, and I was looking for a school. There was only one person that was teaching it here, so I looked them up and started doing the KFM, the Keysi, the old school KFM training. And it was something different, that was for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I had learned quite a bit on it, and it filled a lot of the gaps that I needed in my journey. And then all the way up to the end of 2012, that's when everything's changed.
Yeah, I remember I came on right before the split, and my instructor was Rick Rogers out there in Colorado, and he had been doing it for quite a while too. I know that you guys had like met each other through KFM and stuff like that, and he was at his brown, about to test for his black whenever the split happened. And I know a lot of guys, especially here in the States, were right around that prime to where they were almost at that black level, and then everything split. And,
I was part of that.
Yeah, everything kind of went. See, I was kind of lucky because I had done it for a little while, and I was still trying to get the movements and, all that kind of stuff. But then the split happened. And, me and Rick, we were still training KFM, but they were making the transition. Now, here's where it gets kind of interesting because, right around 2012, they went through the split, and then they were transitioning. Andy decided to do his company, Defense Lab.
Right.
And with a C. Now, us guys from America, that's kind of weird for us, but it was Defense with a C, Lab. And Justo, at that time, just kind of dropped off a little bit. For a little bit. But then he eventually rebranded and turned it into, at that time, it was Keysi by Justo.
Yep.
And now it's kind of come back to Keysi Fighting Method is what they're using to call it. And both guys have worked really hard to build up an organization on both their ends and stuff like that, which you and I, after Keysi Fighting Method, through mutual training and stuff like that, we've actually kind of branched in and trained with both organizations from there. Yep. So real quick, I want to talk about so you touched on what it is that brought you to KFM, old school KFM.
Old school KFM.
Obviously, Batman is number one because, I mean, who doesn't want to fight like the Dark Knight, right? I mean, it was pretty awesome.
It was pretty awesome to see it when it first came out.
Oh, like, yeah. It was like...
I mean, it got my attention quick. It's like, what the heck are they doing?
Right? Like, I've never seen anybody do this.
No, and then when I saw the featurette of the movie, it's like, I want to learn that.
Yeah. And I felt the same way. It's like, this is so different from anything that I've ever done or ever seen before. And I was like, man, I just really want to try that. And it'd be cool to get good at it.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I started kind of shattering a little bit. I didn't know what I was doing, but I used the pillow.
Yes, that's awesome.
I used the pillow. Yeah, I was like, okay, I got to do this.
That's so awesome.
But one thing led to another. And back in the old school KFM, it was very aggressive, very dirty, intense training.
Well, and see, that was the mentality behind it, though. So it was built for those types of situations where usually you're outnumbered, right? So there's multiple opponents, but it's also in an area that is relatively enclosed. So you don't have this chance to move around a whole lot, which is why a lot of the techniques, you see the guys are standing in this real low stance and stuff like that. And it's because A, there's multiple opponents, and B, you know, I don't have this big room, kind of like what we have here, where I can run and go and do all that kind of stuff. But there's also a very interesting thing, and up until KFM, I had never seen this in any other system, but the focus and emphasis on level changing.
Yeah,
right.
That was the big thing, because you focus on from standing, then you switch it to kneeling, or somewhat. You know, you kind of squat down real low, and then from kneeling, then being on your butt, and then being on your back, and then you're doing it right back up again. And that was pretty much the main core of training, with adding multiple opponents. So you start off one-on-one static, then you add multiple opponent back pressure. And then you do this drill, which will constantly be like a change the jacket, where you and I are going, and the third opponent will come in, and boom, we switch it around constantly all the time.
I miss those change the jacket drills. They were so much fun.
Because it was just constantly nonstop. Because here I am hitting you, you're focused on one opponent, then you got to switch it around and turn it on me, and then the other thing, you got to switch it back to the other opponent, switch gloves, and then they got to do the same thing, and I still got to hit you until it's my turn. It's like, man, that was a heck of a workout.
Yeah, before you know it, you're absolutely smoked. You can't breathe at all. Everybody's hunched over and breathing heavy, and it's like, wow, that was some real training.
Yeah,
you know,
and for us here, I mean, when we went to other schools and trained the old KFM system, man, it was a big different night and day from what we saw. So when back then, my training partner, Michael, we were going hardcore, intense, nonstop. Then we came up to other places and we saw them train, and they literally would stop what they were doing to watch me and Michael go at it at each other. And they would ask us, man, what are you guys doing? I was like, KFM, we're training, right? That's the intensity with the mentality. You know, you're outnumbered, you're fighting, and you don't stop.
Got to make it real.
So people were actually, when we do other seminars, go to these seminars, people would come up to us and ask us questions like, how are you guys doing it? Well, part of it, I mean, the instructor make you know, you got to have a good instructor as well, too.
Oh, 100%.
So I learned that as well in my journey. And part of the training, too, is that, you know, having a school in a nice matted area is great, control environment. But one thing is that, one, we didn't have a school. We were training a bunch of guys.
Backyard special, baby.
Backyard special,
yeah, buddy.
We were training at annex of a church, and in that church they had gravel, they had stickers, and you know how that shit goes.
Oh yeah.
And we trained out in the cold. We trained out in heat, nonstop. I mean, it was for an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, and you'll be just drenched in sweat, and you're like tired, but you get that feeling that you can walk out of a building and still, you know, be able to, you can whoop somebody's ass if you needed to.
Oh yeah,
you know,
100%.
It gave you that confidence, that feel, that drive on it. I remember coming back from a KFM seminar back in Atlanta one time with Michael, and we had missed our flight. We were so pissed off, and we were like, okay, nobody better piss us off, and because we will take everybody out.
Right.
You know, we'll take everybody out in the airplane. I don't care if we put us on a no-fly list. But man, we were just so pumped up. Back when it was the old KFM, and luckily we saw Shaq, Shaquille O'Neal, but it's kind of hard to see Shaq, you know, however tall he is and sitting on the.
It was like 7 feet something.
Yeah,
crazy.
That, but he was sitting on the coach, on the not coach, but on the the back part of the plane, and his feet were just kind of sticking out. So it's kind of weird to see a big guy. Yeah, it was funny. But we tried to take a picture, and he wouldn't. So we wanted to start fight with him too. So
could you imagine? Could you imagine being on a plane and seeing Shaq, and then getting in a fight on a plane with Shaq? I mean, it's Hollywood. Where you at, guys? Come on now.
Yeah.
But no, it's a very interesting point that you bring up, because, once I started doing KFM, because it was like I said, it was what Batman was doing. I had never seen these types of movements before. There's not at that time, there wasn't a whole lot of emphasis on like multiple opponents and how you deal with these types of situations and all that kind of stuff. So I knew right then, it's like, I really want to get into this and see what it's all about. And I remember that when I started training, and you touched on this perfectly, you're doing all these different types of drills. You're doing multiple opponent drills, multi-level drills, which adds a whole lot of stress on its own. Yeah. But then you start going in to change the dragon drills. And, when you're training martial arts, you train it in a way where you're trying to master a technique. And then you start training in these types of drills, and you realize that technique is one of the first things that fly out the window. And then it kind of ignites this very primal, very predator type aspect in your mind. And it takes the training, even though you're being safe and you got focus mitts and all that kind of stuff, but it takes this, it takes the training into the mind of a hunter, right? Yes. Like you are just obliterating everything, but not in like a dangerous, like I can't even focus on what I'm doing type of way, but you turn into a predator. Yeah. Right. Which is, some of the drills are named after this aspect called the predator drills and stuff like that. And, so right off the bat, you're getting introduced to this high level of chaos. There's absolutely no control. And this is what people like struggle with, right? I lose control of the situation. I lose control of my footing. I lose control of my position. Now, what do? Yeah. You have to fight. You need to know how to protect yourself, but also fight at the same time. And it's like, oh my God. Once I started doing these drills, like I remember the first predator drill that I did, when you're in the middle of a big circle of people just knocking the dog trash out of you, right? And you're moving around, and I mean, they're just beating the hell out of you. They're eating up your ribs and all. And you start out at your first level, which is just block your head, like keep your head covered. Yep. Right. And I remember the first time I did that, and I've trained since I was 6 years old. Right. So I'm an experienced martial artist, but at that point in time, I was like, I got nothing. Like, what am I going to do? I don't even know what to do. But there was something about it that was like, you know what? I need more of this. And the more that I did it, the more that I found that I really liked this chaos. And it turns you into somebody who really can like turn it on when they need to, It
is one of the things that I liked about it. If you look at it from a I don't want to say psychological point of view, or this KFM was to a point where the de-escalation had failed. Mm-hmm. They had closed the distance. You had told them to stop. You try to get away. You try to run or escape, whatever. But then that failed. Mm-hmm. And then now you're outnumbered and you're being outmaneuvered. And that's where all this close quarter of multiple people is coming in, and you're constantly moving, throwing elbows in close quarter and striking, not just towards the head, but also moving around to the body as well, with a protective cover mechanic on it. Oh. And it was so simple, so direct. Sometimes you didn't need no 64 or 62 variables to cover. Right. It was just a basic cover,
well, at that time, it was called the Pensador.
Yes.
And there was different versions of the Pensador, but it was the Pensador. Yeah. Right.
For my students here, we just call it cover mechanics. Yeah.
Make it easy.
Make it easy. Don't have to make it complicated. We can make it easy, but we can make it complicated. But yeah, the cover mechanics, the Pensador, it was the key on how to move. But a lot of people took it wrong because it like you have to fight like this, and it was not. It was not that format. You start off in that format, kind of like when we talked about earlier with Bikini. Mm-hmm. You start static, but after that, you have to take it more dynamic and more aggressively.
Well, it used to always crack me up is that A, they thought that you would always fight like this. Yeah. And B, they would think that because we fight like this, we have no answer for the ribs and in the lower part of the body and stuff like that. And that used to always crack me up because, you see these comments and it's like, there's absolutely no content, but also, and Andy puts this perfectly. It's like, you think after 20 years of developing this, like we haven't thought about that.
Yeah.
And that's what always cracked me. And again, I trained, old school KFM, and then I spent years upon years in defense lab. Ultimately got the black belt in defense lab. And man, I had to work for it. Like it's not one of those things where it's like, hey, here you go. You paid your money. Like I had to earn that thing. But, after spending all this time, people would often come up to me and be like, oh, I see y'all doing this. And, the same argument that there was back in early 2000s. What happens if I go to kick you in the ribs or in the groin or whatever? And then instead of explaining it to them like a nice civilized human being would do, I would show them, right? Mm-hmm. And they'd go for that kick in the ribs and, you'd adjust. And the thing that I love about KFM, the thing that I love about Defense Lab and even Keysi is that, anything that you touch, doesn't matter if it's the inside of the leg, the outside of the leg, anything you touch is getting destroyed.
Yeah, every movement you make, right, that you made in that particular drill was a movement to destroy. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a simple movement of your feet by a couple of inches or moving in, every movement, every part of your body became a weapon. Because most people, either it's a kick or
do this little drag step,
or the punch. There's a weapon. But once you get into close quarter, or a clinch position, or whatever, head and arm, whatever you want to call it, everything that you did in KFM was with a mentality and a path to destroy every movement. So if I'm moving in with my leg, that was a path to either open up or destroy.
And I don't know if you guys just saw this, but he nailed me right on the IT band. And again, it's not going to take you out of a fight, but I did feel it. And the cool thing is that when you're in a fight like that and stuff like that, if you feel something, even if it doesn't take you out of the fight, you feel a little bit of pain. What do?
You're going to want to move.
You adjust.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I want you to do.
Yep.
So you can go in and say that anything that I touch, I absolutely destroy and stuff like that, but it's all with meaning. It's not like, oh, I'm going to punch this knee and his knee's going to shatter in like 500 places. And then, I'm going to grab the shoulder and then, his shoulder's out of socket. That's not how it happens. But what does happen is that when he kneed me just now, it was right in that IT band. And my first instinct, my first reaction is, ow, that hurts. And I move that, which allows him to quarter in closer and absolutely destroy me with something else, right? Yeah. When I see this arm, if this arm is a barrier and it's up in front of me, I'm not going to sit here and try to grab this arm and then move it. I'm not going to necessarily trap it and just like give it to him to be able to use it more, but I'm going to attack it and I'm going to make it hurt and then I'm going to grab it. Yeah. And I'm going to grab it in a way where, again, it's not going to end the fight, but shit, that hurts, right? And then I'm hitting this guy. And that's the mentality behind it, right? Yeah. It's not like I'm going to do some kind of magic technique and bam, it's all gone.
No. And one thing I did like about the KFM is that you grip everything.
Yes.
Everything.
The Garamono.
Grip.
Yes.
Garamono, everything.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the things that I tell my students. You just grab, get them to move, get them to move anywhere. And there's a different type of grabbing because it's not just grabbing. It's much more of kind of like going in. And if you look if you study the gripping part, is the pinky.
Yep.
Right? And I'm going to do this for the camera here. The pinky rolls in first. Because if I do this grab here, he can move his arm.
Yep.
Right? He can move his arm. If I do this one here, he can move his arm. But if I roll my fingers in tight, wherever he moves his arm or he's trying to push my hand
I don't even want to because I know exactly what that's going to
have that. And this particular grab here, once you roll that pinky into that, sorry, bro. Make it look for the camera, right?
Yep.
So any grab that you do by simply rolling the fingers here, it's going to suck.
You remember the soda shaker?
So no.
So it's doing the same thing. Like I'm hitting and then I'm rolling the hand in, but instead of like just pushing and moving, I'm actually like jerking.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That sucks.
That was a cool
and the gripping is anywhere you grip. And if your training partner was wearing shorts, I know when I wear shorts,
you paid for it.
Oh, I paid for it. Or my training partner back in the day was wearing shorts, he paid for it too. And just gripping around the leg and climbing up and grabbing the fat or the neck, anywhere that has area that you can grab, that was a great thing, man.
Well, I remember. So I was training with Rick one time, and again, my mind was still kind of not fully open when it came to like all these different types of training and stuff. And we were doing just kind of like a little flow where it was a hammer to the arm, and then the grip to the neck. And I didn't realize this, and I was just thinking about it in terms of like grabbing the trap and all that kind of stuff. And he took this grip and he went straight to my face with it. And you don't realize how something as unconventional, but as devastating as grabbing somebody's face with that same kind of grip. And then, I mean, it was just a whole new way of fighting. It was still a martial art. It was still a self-defense system. Right. But it was built in a way to where it was absolutely primal. And this is what sets it apart from everything else. You go to some of these other gyms and there's all this respect and there's bowing and there's,
and that's fine too.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. I still train in some stuff like that. But then you get into this KFM and it was like, man, these are absolute animals. And I love it. Right. All right. So coming back into after the KFM age, we went through to where Justo and Andy, when they broke apart, Andy went on to do Defense Lab and Justo went on to do Keysi by Justo, but then it was brought back to Keysi Fighting Method. And like I said, I spent a little bit of time in Defense Lab, and I went to Spain, trained with the guys. Yep. Did all the instructor camps, and there would be conferences and stuff where Andy and stuff would come to the States, and a long time ago. And so I did all those, and then I eventually ended up getting my black grade in that. And it was one of those things. It was kind of bittersweet because I was starting to get more and more into Filipino martial arts, and at least a lot more seriously. And then JKD and all that kind of stuff. So I still train some of the Defense Lab stuff. I still train some of the old Keysi Fighting Method stuff. I did a seminar not too long back with Justo, and it was an amazing experience. These guys have phenomenal energy, and they're really passionate about what they do. It was unfortunate that they split up because, I think they made really good magic together.
They did.
And now, with them doing their own things, they're great with where they're trying to take their own stuff, man. But I tell you what, those early KFM days, they were something special, huh?
It is. I mean, for me, doing it for a good amount of time, all the way up to the split, it was kind of, sad moment. Yeah. But, sometimes a good thing must come to an end. So.